Hello everybody, this is Alex Merced and this is a video for the Libertarian view. Now this is a video on the institutional libertarian approach. It's a different approach to libertarianism that instead of focusing on the problems with government, it basically lumps government along with other organizations, institutions, and discusses what kind of institutions and organizations maximize liberty, on individual liberty per se, and which ones minimize libertarian. So minimize liberty. Okay, so instead of looking at just government, you look at all institutions, businesses, religions, clubs, cultures, etc., and ask yourself, is this hurting or helping liberty? And it doesn't mean when it's hurting liberty you use force to change it, but once you see an institution or organization that is impinging on liberty or getting in the way of liberty, you may make efforts to educate people to reform it, or get involved in that institution to try to reform it from the inside. But the idea is that libertarians not only should try to get involved in government to try to reduce laws and whatnot that violate liberty, but just also try to protect liberty in every institution. So this is a libertarian who believes in the greater environment. So again, all those institutions can reduce or increase liberty. So not only do we focus on government, but we focus on all institutions and organizations and how they can hurt or help liberty and people's ability to exercise and make choices over their property. Now, some reading I think that will help you sort of understand the conclusions I discuss here is Invisible Wealth by Arnold Kling and Nick Schultz, A Capitalism for the People by Luigi Zingales, and my own book, Risk, Knowledge, and Choice by Alex Merced, which you can purchase at my website, alexmerced.com. Now basically there's three planks to becoming an institutional libertarian, and if you like this idea, you can like the Facebook page for institutional libertarians. Now, first step is encouraging institutions and organizations to be more friendly to liberty, which includes being simple, transparent, and dynamic, which we'll talk more about in a moment. Also protecting competition, not only in economic markets. So it's not only encouraging, competition over who provides candy and healthcare and things like that, but also in political markets, because whether there's a government or no government or whatever your personal preference is, politics exists because people will have those who influence them or influence others, so there's power. And certain institutions will yield wider influence, but you want that influence to be competitive as possible. Same thing with economics, same thing with spiritual institutions and cultural institutions. Okay, you want competition across the board, so that way none of these get so strong that they can impede liberty. Okay, and also encourage individuals to maximize their ability to protect their own liberty. Okay, we're not forcing people to get more knowledge, skills, health, relationships, but encouraging people to increase their knowledge, increase their skills, increase their health, and increase their relationships, because through this, then they become more self-actualized. They're more free to make their own choices because they have the foundations of being able to exercise that liberty. Now, again, what's a good institution? An institution that's simple, not complicated. Why? A simple institution is going to be easier for people to understand, which means people can understand whether that institution is empowering them or oppressing them much more easier. The more complicated it gets, the easier it is to take advantage of people, because they may not necessarily understand what's going on, if it's in their best interest, or if it's not in their best interest, as well as if it were simpler. Same thing with transparency. The more transparent an organization is, the more accountable it is to individual choice. And the idea is you want institutions that are accountable to individual choice, so that way individual choices in a sort of free market world can have that sort of free market regulation that a lot of us libertarians want. But if you have complex, opaque, static institutions which are not dynamic meaning that they're easily changeable, that the behavior of individual choice can easily change these because of the way they're structured. If they're complicated, opaque, and static, they can become very oppressive and not very accountable to individual choice, because individual choice will not necessarily know whether it's in their or against their best interest to make the choice to hold those institutions accountable in a sort of voluntary way. So we can encourage simplicity, transparency, and dynamicism. Competition, again, even if you have, let's say, a free market environment, perfect economic free market environment, but you have a centralized political market where there's a lot of power in one place, okay, even if you have a natural monopoly, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. A natural monopoly would be a business that becomes the dominant market share just because it provided a superior product at a superior price. Problem is, once it has a dominant market share with a centralized political market, it can then have enough political clout to co-opt that centralized political market and then give itself favors to then become an unnatural monopoly, one that is protected by the power of other things. So in that case, you would want decentralized power or decentralized government, so that way there's enough competition there. So that way, if a natural monopoly does come into existence, it can't coerce that. But also, you don't necessarily want monopolies to exist either way, because again, if there is other things, it's not just political markets, there's also spiritual markets. If there's a very dominant religion, a natural monopoly with growing market share, while again doing it because it provides a better service and better price, can eventually be powerful enough to co-opt a dominant religion or a dominant culture to protect itself from future competition and then become a natural monopoly. So the fact that if any of these markets have a dominant player, then other people in other more competitive markets can use that dominant player as a way to make their markets less competitive. So the idea is to make sure there's always competition politically, economically, spiritually, and culturally all the time. Okay? Mainly to hold each of these markets accountable. Again, not through force, not through sensitively forcing these things, but through sort of individual action, encouragement, education, etc. And that's where we get into the self-improvement area. A lot of this holding making sure institutions are in a liberty maximizing way, making sure markets are competitive, can only happen if individuals work on, well, not self-improvement, but self-improvement. Okay? And that means improving their health. Okay? The healthier you are, the less tied down you are. For example, the worse your health becomes, the more dependent you become on things like healthcare services and those who provide those to you, to the point where you lose your ability to necessarily make decisions for yourself. Same thing with knowledge. If you don't know a lot, it's hard to tell which decisions are good for you, and you become more dependent on people who can help you, or try to, or say they're helping you to make decisions that are in your best favor. So the more you know what's good for you, the more free you are, because then you can make decisions without having to depend on other people to make decisions. Skills. Having skills that allow you to move around society. Okay, so if you only have one skill, and that skill becomes obsolete, you then have a self-interest to sort of undermine liberty and use different powers to try to protect your labor market. But if people have diverse sets of skills and are encouraged to pursue more skills, then innovation and changing market norms don't necessarily create an incentive for people to try to protect the old market. Okay, so markets can stay dynamic. And then relationships. The more people you know, the more people you care about, the more choice you have. Whether it be because if you don't have relationships, people won't want to necessarily behave with you, coordinate with you, cooperate with you, etc. In that case, your choices become limited to what you can do with yourself. And you can't do much with that necessarily. So encouraging people to develop their own voluntary relationships will also increase the ability of kind of projects they can undertake and whatnot, and improve their liberty to pursue their dreams and goals, etc. So this is sort of a institutional libertarian point of view. My name is Alex Merced. My website's alexmerced.com. You're looking at the Libertarian View YouTube channel. If you want to contribute to the Libertarian View YouTube channel, contact me, and we'll help you be able to contribute your content to this channel. Thank you very much. Have a great day and enjoy.